Can you guys hear me?
We can.
How are you doing today, Erin?
I'm good. Thank you, Tony. How are you? Good. Marty, thank you for joining us. There's the president.
Are we all set?
Julie, I'm still waiting here for Rudy. Don't see him.
I just sent him the link via email, so hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Marty,
Jeff.
I see we have I see we have a Hunt guest too.
Got a lot of support there.
Hi, Megan.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
Oh, Marty, it's so fun to have you.
He gets that a lot.
Mhm. Aren't you glad that you were not on the board in the days of Zoom?
Probably. Probably. But you know what? It's everybody's doing business this way. So it's kind of a new thing.
There he is.
All right.
Okay. So let's go ahead and get this party started. So we're reconvening to open session at 6:04. I just have to read off to be advised that we are doing a recording at the direction of the board of this Zoom meeting, and it may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Disclaimer number 1. And we did not take any action in closed session. And that leads us to attendance roll call. President Elkishin here, Clerk Lopez Jones.
Here.
Trustee Maxfield.
Here.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Present.
Trustee Rothberg Allen. Oh, where's Stephanie? There we go. And we don't. How come I can't see Stephanie? Where is she? I can't see everybody. There we go. And we don't have student representative.
Not tonight.
Correct?
Thank you.
All right. Perfect. So if everybody would unmute and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, I think Paul's going to share her screen. Great. Okay, ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the
United States of America,
and
to
to
the
the
republic
republic for which
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Good job. So any changes on the agenda, Erin?
They're not. Thank you.
Great. So I'm just looking for a motion to go ahead and approve and adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Excellent.
Second.
Great. Thank you, Indira. Remember, everybody has to unmute with the space bar when you're giving me your A's and A's. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you. Okay, 3.6 district mission statement. We are a collaborative, culturally rich educational community where a rigorous and innovative curriculum prepares our students to be successful contributors to our global society. And thank you, Paula, for making it in the biggest font ever, because now I can read it. All right, 4.1, recognition. The Board of Education recognizes students, employees, or members of the community who have received recognition for academic or athletic achievement, or in this case, who have made significant contributions to any kind to the district. So today we are honoring our former board member, Marty Hunt. And he's a former trustee and supportive community member in many ways. He provides a scholarship to a deserving Calistoga High School senior every year. Over many years, and you can probably tell us exactly how many, Marty, he has donated several $1,000s towards scholarships, and last year 3 seniors were awarded $1,000 scholarships in his name. So on behalf of the whole board, and I'm sure that Jeff and maybe others will want to pipe in, we just want to tell you how much we appreciate all that you've contributed, including your time as a board member and all of this wonderful contribution to scholarships for the school. Does anybody else want to go ahead, Jeff? I know you got to say.
Well, Marty, thank you for your donations, of course. Appreciate everything you've done. We do miss you, but we know you're on to bigger and better things, but that's okay. But again, appreciate everything you've done over the, how many years were you on the board?
18 on the board.
18 years. 18 years. That's dedication, my friend. That's dedication.
Yeah.
Appreciate everything. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. We were able to do some good stuff in that time.
And we miss you as our great historian. But we still call on you every once in a while when we need to remember something. So
that's true. That's
thank
true.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you for everything, and we definitely miss you. If you'd like to say anything else, please feel free. Sure.
Well, it was an exciting time on the board. Like I said, we were able to do some cool stuff. When the superintendent called me and asked, if I could be on. Thinking back a little bit on what we had done and where we started, and Megan's on tonight. They weren't even in school yet, when we first kicked it off, and seeing them being able to, go through the school, pretty proud of them. Since she's on, I'm going to brag on her a little bit. Meg's went on to Davis, and we, and we applied for scholarships. And so it's nice that I can help out even a little bit more like that too. So it's been fun. This last year was great. Got a chance to do 3, deserving students. And that's not the easy part. There's so many deserving kids and trying to find the right ones. But Calistoga has been great for my family and myself. And so the school has really provided lots of opportunities. Lauren too has gone on to be a physical therapist. Both the girls are up in Seattle now. And so I will tell anybody that'll listen that Calistoga really set them up to be, to thrive in the UC system, which is not easy. And so I really do believe in Calistoga. I think it's been great and continues to be so. And so if I can give back a little bit and send those next students armed with a few extra cents to take those classes, then it's something I really believe in and I'm happy to do. So thank you for acknowledging me. And, like you said, I'm proud to be a part of the district, and thank you for continuing to keep me on board.
So Marty, if we were in person, we'd get to take a picture together, which I would have loved so much. So maybe later, but Aaron has a little something for you that we'll get. We have a nice little certificate for you all framed that we'll get to you. But maybe we could take pictures at a real board meeting when we come back together.
I would look forward to that.
Yay. And you are welcome to stay for the remainder of the board meeting. And Megan, you too. However, somehow I think that's probably not what you're going to do. Seeing that, oh, I just have to say one more thing. We were reminiscing a little bit about how this particular board meeting would be moved from this particular night due to a special football game.
I was
I don't know who told them that.
Yeah, I'm like, Maxfield, you're missing out, man. We never had meetings this Monday night. Well, no, guys, it's really great to see everybody and to know the school's still doing great stuff. You guys, this challenging time, I feel for you guys trying to balance everything. So I really appreciate it. And you guys stay safe, and I'll let you continue on with your exciting agenda tonight.
Yay. Thanks, Marty.
Thank
Bye,
you,
Marty.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. That's so fun. Okay. That leads us to 5.1, public comments, public business from the floor on non-agendized items. Paula, did we have anything? Okay. So just one last call before that. Anybody have anything that they want to speak about on non-agendized items? We can do it now. Otherwise, I'm going to keep moving. Okay. So that brings us to the fun stuff presentations. So 6.1, measures of academic progress, MAP, fall 2020. And Alex, so nice to meet you and have you as part of the meeting tonight. I can't wait to meet a real person. So go ahead and take it away. It's your
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me to present tonight. I'm super grateful to be here. My first time presenting to the board, so thank you. I'll wait for Paula to pop up those slides there. All right. So I'm the data and assessment support specialist. So I'm going to review our launch into the MAP assessment that we have just adopted this year. We can go to the next slide. I'm sure as we were going through the adoption process, you learned a little bit about what NWEA MAP is. I added the definition there. Tonight, I'm going to share a little bit of our story, how we landed on MAP and how we got started with MAP at the district. And then I'm going to go over a few of the results, just some high-level overview results from the fall administration of MAP. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the sites plan to do next with their MAP results. All right, so our MAP story started with the DLT, the Data Leadership Team. And it started actually, I think we started back in the spring of 2019, but it was really in the fall of 2019, so just over a year ago, that the members of the DLT came to the conclusion that they really needed a common assessment K-12, and not just an assessment that gave them an individual score like RI and MI did, but an assessment that was really robust and gave them lots of information about their students and how to move forward. And throughout those conversations with the DLT, the real focus was building data literacy. And that's kind of how we landed on MAP. We landed on a platform that really everybody could get behind. And they knew that it was aligned to the Common Core standards. They knew that there was this robust system where they could go in and pull out data for their class or for one student at a time. So then we did a little pilot last winter, right before everything kind of hit. And we had 8 teachers run that pilot with one of their classrooms. And from there, the DLT was integral in planning our launch for the MAP assessment. I mean, they planned everything from, how and where they were going to train. Were we going to do it school-wide? Were we going to do it site-specific? Were we going to do it in small groups? And mind you, all virtual as well. So they had to think about that. So the DLT had a huge part in the launch planning. And then, of course, in August of this year, we introduced it district-wide to all staff. And we did break out by site. We had MAP experts come in and go over the training. I did a little bit of training as well during that time. But really the bulk of the work began in October of this year. That's when we started our fall testing window. And what that means is, you know, we had to roster the system. We had to make sure all the students were in there and assigned to the appropriate teachers. And we also had to make sure teachers knew how to get in, how to proctor the test, and not just proctor the test in person, but most folks took this test remotely. The elementary school, Wildcat Academy, did remotely. Their regular classrooms came in small cohorts, and then the secondary, junior, senior high was all remote. So that came with a whole set of challenges as well. It was the first time administering a remote assessment, you know, 30 to 53 questions. The assessment takes about an hour to an hour and a half per student. So that was a huge challenge, but we tested from October to December and everybody came together. I'm going to show you the engagement results in a little bit. And it was really, really incredible to see. And it was really incredible to finally have data in the hands of our teachers. We finally had a foundational, somewhere to start as far as data goes since we didn't do the CASP last year. And that means we dove into our data dive. So that was around November, December, and we really started getting folks interested in MAP data. And not only did teachers dive into data, but they came to an understanding of MAP data so that they could share it with parents. Elementary school sent a family report home with their trimester 1 report card. So it was really exciting for teachers to be able to say, I know right where your child is and I know what will help them improve. So next we're going into our winter map, starting out in late February, and we hope to wrap that up by March. And again, looking at data after each round of MAP and making the data integral to our decision-making process is something that we're really trying to drive home. And that's kind of where we're at with our timeline. Let's move on to the results. So like I said, we launched a new assessment system during unprecedented times. Some students tested in person and some students tested remotely. I did want to mention that this is a test that's been administered. Howell Mountain uses this test, Pope Valley and St. Helena. St. Helena did not do this test this fall, so we did it remotely, and so did the 2 smaller districts up Valley. So that's pretty exciting. The district MAP goals were developed by the DLT. They really did some fine tuning on why we were adopting this assessment and what its purpose was. And we had a super high engagement rate for this, you know, remote testing. Almost 92% of students participated in this test. And it took a lot of tracking down, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails. 788 students tested, 55 teachers, and support staff were huge in supporting teachers via Zoom and helping parents log their students in remotely. So families played an incredible role. The perseverance of parents throughout MAP testing was really, really incredible to see. And I was lucky enough to join many Zoom sessions in which I actually got to help firsthand. So you can see that we do have some generalized performance results. We've got 46% of students who tested for English language arts, tested above average, and for math it was about 38. So these are pretty, you know, they're pretty on point for where we thought our students might be. You know, we're struggling with math as we knew on the CASP a couple of years ago. So luckily, this test is all about growth. So when we give this, administer this test in February, the most powerful thing we'll have is a growth score. We can see how kids move either up or down with what they're learning. And the next one, next steps. So, like I said, we're going to be constantly diving into this MAP data, making sure that we have a great understanding of where students are at and how to help them move forward. We've used the data already to identify students who are either excelling, students who are maybe falling behind, and we're adjusting learning and support groups for those students. We're also doing a lot of collaboration around this, exploring successes and challenges with utilizing the data. What data are you going to? What's working in your classroom? What's the most meaningful, or how can we address this with our students or our small groups? And then applying that learning to some of the supports that we're putting in place, whether it's small group work, whether it's assigning more challenging work to students who are excelling. So those are our next steps, and those will continue to be our next steps as we move throughout this process. Always jumping back to the data, always evaluating what kind of supports we can provide to help students grow. And then the last slide is just a few resources if you want to dig in a little deeper. I put the growth website on there. The family toolkit is fantastic. It's there's tools in English and Spanish. I included the normative data and the research from 2020, and a little NPR article that was featured that includes MAP around discussing student learning during the pandemic. And so now I'm going to open up to questions. I know I kind of flew on through, so I'd like to open up to any questions if you have them.
I'm kind of curious, because MAP is used throughout all different districts, is there any type of benchmarking or resources that they provide around similar results in similar schools with similar demographics?
I do not know of that yet, but I know that we are in a really great county here where we do a lot of data sharing throughout our county. And it might be interesting to see, and I know Erin speaks with the PLN members, and they use DataZone, which is another platform that all the data gets dumped into, and maybe that's an opportunity for us to look across the county at least. I would also be super interested in asking MAP themselves, you know, if they have some similar district data that we could kind of run some numbers. Definitely.
So exciting and fun.
I know, isn't it? Any other questions around MAP data?
Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Great
everybody.
job, Alex, so interesting.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for the resource page. I'll look at all that stuff later too.
Awesome. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for all your work.
Yeah.
Good to meet you. All right. So moving on to our next fun presentation, 6.2 Technology Department Assessment and Review. Maureen.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. In the last couple of months, we've talked a lot about technology, and the board recently approved 2 different contracts with digital advisors. One contract was for monthly consulting services, and the other was for a district-wide assessment and review of our technology departments, our infrastructure, and the equipment that we use in technology. We have Anthony Thomas, a senior advisor with Digital Advisors, here with us tonight to give the board an overview of the technology assessment that Digital Advisors did perform. But before Anthony starts his presentation, I just wanted also the board to know the other contract that we've signed as far as the consulting agreement. Anthony is the person I go to most of the time. Actually, I think it's been all of the time, Anthony, for any kind of support in technology related matters. He's very quick to respond. I can email him, text him, call him, and he's right there for me all the time. And I've learned a tremendous amount of technology. Oh geez, everything as far as technology logo and or lingo and you know, how everything works and functions in a district. Anthony, take over and give the board an overview of our technology. Can't hear you, Anthony.
Hear me now?
Yep. Paula, can you put up the presentation?
Yeah, yes, please. So good evening, Board President Elkishin. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Superintendent, trustees, and cabinet. I'm excited. I love the data-driven presentation before. I'm excited you guys are doing some kind of exciting things, so it's kind of cool. So my name's Anthony Thomas. I work for Digital Advisors. I'm also a CTO and director at Merced Union High School District. I've been there for 22 years, so I have 20 years of education experience. So can we move to the next slide? So digital advisors. So our vision of digital advisors is to make sure that all school districts have access to the expertise that they need to unlock the full potential in leveraging innovation and technology. Our mission is to support cabinet level administrators and high stakes initiatives across all departments through our team of innovative and industry experts that otherwise districts would not be able to access or afford. So next slide. And just a really disclaimer, I speak really fast, so if I speak too fast, please slow me down. So tonight, on tonight's agenda, we'll speak about the Connectivity K-12 assessment report that we did. We'll talk a little bit about the scope of work, the inventory, some key observations that we found, and then some recommended next steps. Next slide, please. So Connectivity K-12, what is it? So it's critical to understand your district's current IT landscape in order to make, informed and cost-effective decisions. Kind of like what she was speaking about the map. So you need data in order to make these key decisions on where you're going to go next. So we did a complete inventory of your IT infrastructure and classroom technology. That's what the assessment was. So we went through every single classroom. And this will help provide us a blueprint of your current state of technology so we can look at it and see exactly where you are. So knowing this, how does that help us, right? It helps us make better decisions on what needs to be upgraded, saving money because you're not just guessing on what the next steps are. You have a clear plan to avoid missteps and effectively deploy new technology in conjunction with the data that you pull for students, right? So that we're matching the two together. And this also avoids delays in achieving objectives. If we have a clear understanding, we have a clear plan, it's easier to move fast, right? So next slide, please. So the scope of work. So basically we did a complete inventory of the computers and all the stuff inside the classrooms. We did it of the IT infrastructure, and then we're providing an individual campus upgrade cost estimate worksheet and a 5 to 7 year budget plan that I'm working with Maureen currently on, so that you guys know every year how much money you need to put away to ensure that your equipment is state of the art and it's meeting your learning objectives. So this took 3 days. We walked at all of your sites and your district office. And thank you, Maureen, and your wonderful staff that provided us access over the Thanksgiving break. Next slide, please. So here's an example of what one of the spreadsheets looks like. So this is just kind of an overlaying view of kind of where things are at and the data that we collected. So it shows the phones on there, access points, printers, Chromebook carts, document cameras. So on the top there, we see the Calistoga Elementary School, MDF, IDF. So basically what an MDF is, just for those that don't know, an MDF is the main equipment room. And the IDF are those little closets that sometimes can be inside a classroom or in a building inside of another closet. So those are the little equipment. So as we go through this journey and you start to see us, you'll probably start hearing these terms. So just a kind of a high level of what those things are. So next slide, excuse me. So here's some key observations that we found when we went and walked all those sites and gathered all that data and looked it all up. One of the things that we noticed was there's no standardization with any single technology, whether that be wireless or switching. Switching is basically what provides connectivity to the computers or the desktops. So you have multiple vendors across your whole network. So the problem with that is the impact that it has when you have support staff or people trying to work on it. It makes it very difficult. If you have, it's like trying to teach curriculum with 5 different textbooks in one class, right? Having to be an expert of each textbook instead of just one textbook. So, and it can also create security challenges because they each have their own software and the way that each one of them run and how they're set up. So you could have a bug in one type of it and take half your campus down. So that's another thing. The other part is the complexity of lifecycle management and unnecessary costs. When we talk about unnecessary costs, so if you have Cisco, for instance, for one technology for maybe your switches, and then you have Juniper also, you have to buy a support maintenance agreement for each one of those brands for that equipment. So in a sense, you're kind of paying extra costs to different vendors. And then if you have a problem, sometimes you're going to have to call 2 or 3 vendors to kind of track the problem down. The other thing that we've seen is almost all of your infrastructure has reached pretty much end of life. If it isn't end of life right now, it's in a year or 2. So we need to start that planning process. One of the things that we found as we walked the campuses for those 3 days, and Maureen was nice enough to share with us, is UPS. So that's your battery backups for the equipment that are in those cabinets. So your battery backup is 15 minutes because the power went out about 4 times during those 3 days. So we got to experience what it is, what you guys go through there in Calistoga for power. We would suggest at least an hour. I know within some districts, they do 2 hours, depending on whatever the board goals are of if you have a power outage, how long do you keep students in class before you release class? So, but we suggest at least an hour of uptime with the battery backups. So next slide. So what are the next steps? So we need to assess integrity and life cycle of the network infrastructure, and then basically map that to the budget that we're developing for you guys, and then work with Maureen so that we have that 5 to 7 year plan. One of the other things that we've seen that really needs to kind of happen is to move your IT office. It's very small for one person, let alone trying to put a second person or to repair items in that room. And hire a full-time IT network analyst. What this would do for your district would be able to provide inside support and self-sustainability. So instead of hiring contractors to get you through the project that you're doing, you would have an in-house person to help you do those types of things. In the long run, it will be cheaper for you guys also. We also suggest doing a security assessment. So basically, it would check all the softwares on the network equipment vulnerabilities, a ransomware assessment. I know maybe some of you guys have gotten emails saying, I'm Superintendent Smith Egbert. Please, are you available? Please contact me. I need you to go buy me some Apple gift cards. Can you do that for me? I don't know if that's happened to you guys, but it's pretty frequent with every school district. So we suggest a security assessment. We also suggest a wireless survey. So the wireless survey is basically what we do is we walk around and we check the wireless spectrum frequency, and then we map it to your campus. So it creates a heat map is what we call it. It's basically circles of connectivity and how good of connectivity you have on your campus. So that way you may have some APs, too many APs in one area where you have over coverage, and you can move those out into areas where you don't have as good a coverage, or you may need to put more coverage in certain areas like at high school. You may want it on the blacktop where you're doing PE and you're taking attendance. And then doing a cloud assessment. So looking at the servers that you guys have and the applications that you guys host, and looking at possibly moving some of that stuff to the cloud. So you don't have to purchase those expensive servers and you don't have to manage those expensive servers. So looking at what that would look like and doing a TCO on that. And then the other thing is, especially for your guys' area, especially recently being hit with the fires, is doing a cloud-based disaster recovery planning. You know, what happens if, you know, a fire ravages through your elementary school and wipes out all your equipment? Basically, you would have to start fresh from the ground up, and that could take months. You know, I got to help with Katrina in their process after they had the hurricane, and it took them years before they got back up and going because of that disaster for all the data that they lost. So next slide. So is there any questions? Does anybody have any questions for me, or?
I'm always asking questions. I just want to make sure nobody else wanted to ask before I did. When you talk about, I didn't see in the next steps, how do we recover from the fact that we have so many different vendors that you were talking about, all the multiple different textbooks? I get how that could be a big problem.
So that's a great question. So part of that plan is that 5 to 7 year budget is what we do is we'll look at the monies that you got, like your ESSA funds, your general fund, Title I, Perkins, whatever you guys, the funding sources that you have, and then we'll match them to that 5 to 7 year plan. We'll look at your oldest devices, your most critical devices that you have, and then look at your instructional practices. What are you guys trying to do instructionally? And then how do we map that with technology and build a priority list based on that? So then basically what would happen is, say we all go back to campus. We're all kind of in a pandemic right now. Students are at home. So maybe wireless at this moment isn't the highest priority. Maybe it's replacing desktops for teachers to do distance learning, or those types of things. Or maybe you're in a hybrid model where you need to replace projectors this year. So we still have some more data numbers to crunch and some more interviews with Maureen and Cabinet to have conversations, but that's the whole part of the assessment, is to first at least have the data so that it gives us a starting point so we can figure out instructionally where you guys want to go, and then we map the technology based on that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and you obviously will bring to the table different bids from vendors, because what I understand is we're wanting to get all sort of one vendor to oversee. I see. Okay.
And then policies and procedures also, right? Like having standards when you do things like, I'll use for example, like document cameras, right? So when you're doing trainings or instructional coaches, having one type of document camera so that you're showing your teachers really how to use all the functions or features. Now, it's not saying that every teacher has to use one type, because there might be a type that fits their instructional needs more than another type. But the more you can standardize and the more we can build standardization, the easier and cheaper it is.
We're so
And
small. Go ahead.
One place that standardization comes in very, it's very important is when you're actually building new buildings and you're constructing. And, you know, if we're going to be looking at bond projects in the next, 3 to 5 years, we're going to want to make sure that we have standardized equipment, not only going into the new buildings, but as we replace, we're using that same equipment as well. So.
Good. Anybody else have any questions? That was a lot of information. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Anthony. That was really interesting. And I think it's just amazing that we're thinking out into the future and planning. Imagine that.
Hey, those were 2 great presentations. I really loved the presentation before. I mean, that whole student-based and using data to drive decisions. I commend your district. They're doing great things.
Our district staff is killing it.
Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate you coming and presenting to our board tonight. And we'll get a more detailed report that we will deliver to the board as well when we're finished with the whole process.
So thank you guys. You guys have a good night.
Thank you too.
Okay, moving on to information and discussions. We are going to look at 7.1 board policies first reading. So hopefully everybody got a chance to look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. And I assume these are all, except for the attendance and chronic absence, the sexual harassment stuff is all legal, right?
It is. Yeah.
And then is there anything else you want to add on those, or anybody have questions?
I don't have anything to add, Julie. It's all reflecting legal changes.
No questions? Okay, rolling forward. Okay, reports. So much fun. Okay, 8.1. So we'll start off with Michael.
All right. Well, Happy New Year, everyone. Good to see you and good to be here. I have a pretty short report for you tonight. You know, we've been on holiday, but a few updates that I can share. We have new Cal OSHA guidance related to COVID-19, actually 21 pages of new Cal OSHA guidance that go into effect that we need to comply with, though I think that, you know, we are, for the most part, already are compliant with what the expectations are. One of the new pieces is the requirement for a written COVID-19 prevention plan, and you'll see that on the consent agenda tonight. And as we put that together, it's not a lot of new information. It's just kind of putting what we've been doing down on paper. There are new timelines for communicating with employees when there is a positive COVID-19 case on campus. Guarantee that there's a continuation of compensation and benefits when an employee is excluded from work due to COVID-19. The new guidance defines a workplace outbreak, what that means, a major outbreak, and then details the required response frequency of staff testing. And it also describes how districts should be keeping records of their COVID-19 cases. Again, you know, most of this for us has been in place. So no major changes for us, but we have kind of clarified that, and it exists in the written COVID-19 prevention plan. In addition, I can share that we're working towards making our COVID-19 case numbers public. We've been keeping this information logged and detailed for our purposes, but I think we're on the cusp of making it more public on the district website. And obviously we'll keep the reporting anonymous to protect confidentiality, but I think soon you'll be able to see how many cases there are, when they're happening, where they're happening, and it'll give a greater sense of transparency to everyone. I can also share that we've responded to a January 6th travel advisory by the California Department of Public Health. And you know, when we entered into the vacation, there was a travel advisory, but there was no quarantine requirement. And as a result, we had some staff members who traveled out of state, out of country, which even with an advisory was allowable. And then on January 6th, right before we came back to school, California has issued this strong urge to quarantine for 10 days. It's just short of mandatory. That being said, you know, we felt it was important that we do our part to stop the spread of COVID-19 in our community. And so we have made this mandatory for our staff. And so anyone who's traveled out of the state of California will be quarantining for 10 days. So that's impacting at this point about 6 employees who will be working remotely until their quarantine period has ended. And we are also communicating that information to our families because it will impact this Wednesday's material pickup that we have happening at both school sites. So we'll want to make sure that parents, if they or their children have traveled out of the state, they should be quarantining in their home, and they should not be coming to the school to pick up materials. And then we'll offer them a variety of ways they can get the materials should they not be able to come to the campus this Wednesday. And that's the major updates. You know, as we're launching into the second half of the year, I'm looking forward to, you know, conducting our normal business, which will include state testing, which I anticipate will be challenging this year. And then in addition to normal business, we're going to have the, you know, these COVID-19 related issues that are going to continue to be in front of us on a daily basis. And that's my report for tonight.
Great job. I think it made me laugh when you said, and then we'll get back to conducting normal business. It's created so much extra work. Anybody else have any questions for Michael? I was reading through that. That's great. Thank you so much. Okay. Then we will move on to Maureen, her presentation on Director of Business.
Okay, I'm going to talk money, money, money tonight. We have been approved to receive coronavirus relief funds round 2 from our federal government. You know that they passed second stimulus package back in December. And so we will be seeing that was passed, and they'll come in the form of Title I allocations to school districts. So in round 1, we received about $93,000 in these types of funds. And in this second round, they allocated a lot more money to this particular type of federal funding. So our district will probably be seeing about $330,000 of these ESSER funds coming to the district. I don't know when yet exactly we'll receive cash, but it's in the works as far as I know. And of course, I just want to make a reminder to the board that these are one-time in nature funds, so we can't use them necessarily for ongoing expenses. They are allowing us some additional type of expenditures with these funds to prepare for schools to reopen, to spend on COVID testing and doing any repairs or upgrades to improve the air quality in school buildings. So that's something that they added to the already you can spend this money on these different types of things. And then the timeline for spending these funds is probably going to go through September of 2023. So that's good news. We don't have to spend it in 4 months like we had to spend $847,000 that we got in August. So this is great. We can take a little bit more time and do some planning with these funds. To date, we have received over 7 different types of COVID-related funding, all with different requirements, all with different ways of how they've been allocated to districts, and all with different rules of spending. It has been a crazy year for the budget of any school district when it comes to COVID and federal funds. It's just, I mean, I'm very thankful that we have received this type of funding. Right now, we're well over $1 million of what we've received, and then obviously more to come with the $330,000 and what I'm going to talk about next with the governor's proposal. But again, very hard to keep track of, and different ways to spend and different rules for each funding stream. On Friday, the governor released his 21-22 state budget proposal, and the economy has actually rebounded quite better than they originally thought was going to happen when COVID hit back in March. So the state budget in 2020 was planned for a $5.6 billion surplus, and when COVID hit, it went to a projection of a $54.3 million deficit. Things have now changed dramatically in the outlook for 21-22. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about Prop 98 funding, just because that's obviously a funding source for all the school districts in California. We as a district get property tax funding, so we have a floor of Prop 98 funding, but we get excess money of that Prop 98 funding because of our property tax status. So Prop 98, they're proposing, or the governor's proposing, $85.8 billion in Prop 98 spending. This is about I think about $3.5 billion more than previous year. So it's the highest we've ever had in Prop 98 funding before. On top of that, the governor wants to give another $3.8 billion of general fund, state general fund resources to help the Prop 98 guarantee for next year. So there is also a COLA planned of 3.84%. That COLA is going to take the plate, or it's going to make up the difference of the COLA we didn't get this year, and then also add next year's COLA to that as well. So that equals 3.84%. If you're not a property tax district, then you see that in your LCFF funding, and you get an increase in cash dollars. The governor is also proposing investment of $315 million in one-time funds to assist in professional development of school site staff in very high needs areas such as math. So I guess math is, not just our district. Lots of districts in the state need help with math. Social, emotional, and well-being of students, learning loss, and professional development for an ethnic studies course and instructional materials support as well for that. So that's a lot of money that we haven't seen in professional development for a few years now, so it would be great if that comes to fruition. There's a pension relief also proposal that we already have planned in our multi-years, but they still are planning on giving us a reduction in what the employer contribution is meant to be for STRS and PERS. And so in essence, the state is saying, hey, we're giving you this reduction even though they gave it to us last year. They're just not taking it away from us in 21-22, which is great, but it's no new money for us. And then there's 2 grant proposals that are coming out with the state budget. The first grant proposal is $4.6 billion in available grants for districts to apply to address intervention for students, to expand learning, and to address learning loss. So for our district, we can apply for grants to help with things like maybe an extended school year, summer school, before and after school programs, some type of community learning hub, anything that's going to help the intervention of that learning gap loss that we've had since we started distance learning. The other grant proposal is probably something you've been hearing about in the news, and it's Governor Newsom's incentive proposal to reopen school districts. He would like to mark $2 billion of the state budget to encourage school districts to reopen transitional kindergarten through 6th grades within a certain time period, and districts can apply to receive these funds in order to do that. The funding ranges anywhere from $450 to $700 per student for your entire district ADA. And the money is more available to school districts, or you get a higher rate if you open faster. So obviously in the plan that he is proposing, it's like, we want you to get kids back in school as fast as possible. There are a couple of different application opportunities in February and March, but the sooner we apply, the more money we do get. But that also means the sooner we open our schools. And then on top of just reopening, we also will see another grant if we reopen that is in relation to our supplemental and concentration grant students. So for us, that could be a significant dollar amount on top of the $450 per student, and it can go anywhere up to a total of $700 per student. So depending on what we do and what our plan is, we can see a fair amount of income from this grant. I know Erin wants to talk in more detail about what timelines and opening specifics of the grant. So that's all I have for tonight. Unless the board has questions, I'll pass it off to Erin.
Thank you, Maureen. Well, as Michael mentioned, it's nice to have our staff back on the school campuses today, and I'm hopeful that not only staff, but also our students and their families were able to take some time over the break just to relax and rejuvenate and recover from all the stresses that we've all been under due to both the recent surge in the pandemic and then most recently last week's horrific assault on our Capitol building. Michael and Maureen did a great job just now of covering many of the components of the governor's proposed budget and his return to school plan. It also includes a requirement for regular testing of schools that are in the purple or red tier and those that are in deep purple. So districts in those counties or regions would be required to administer COVID-19 testing every 2 weeks, and then communities with high rates of transmission or those that are in the deep purple will be required to test weekly. That's problematic, obviously, because I don't think there are any counties right now who have the capacity to do that. So the state is trying to establish a statewide testing system that, of course, we would have to pay for. The governor is offering that service at a reduced rate of perhaps $40 per person, which for our district, an estimate would be around $34,000 a week. So it's extreme costs if we were to have to do that. But it's important to remember at this point in time, his proposal is simply a proposal until the legislature approves it. So we're all kind of on hold right now. I have had 3 calls with Dr. Reluccio in the last week, and she's heard very little as a health officer about the specifics for the plan. So we're kind of in a wait and see mode. I think we are very confident, Maureen and Michael and I, just about where we are as a district right now in preparation for reopening. We've done a lot of work with our labor partners and getting prepared as far as movement into our hybrid learning. So I feel good in comparison to a lot of other districts. I think we're way ahead of the game. So we will wait and see what happens. It is important to note that in his plan, that even though he is pushing schools to reopen to in-person learning, his plan does include the caveat that districts still have to offer distance learning to families who opt for that, or for children who cannot return to school because of health reasons. The good news that came during today's call with Dr. Reluccio is that our county is now partnering with Safeway, and they are going to be holding mass vaccination clinics for educators. And they have even offered to hold the clinic actually at every school site. So it would be much more convenient for our educators. Dr. Reluccio is positive about the fact she thinks that we're going to be given the opportunity to be vaccinated soon. She doesn't know the exact timeline, and that, of course, is contingent on when we get more and more vaccine within the county. But she was very hopeful today, much more hopeful than even a week ago during our calls. So that was good news. Then as far as projects that have been occurring the last 3 weeks in the district or progressing, the elementary school fence project began during winter break. And if you've driven by the campus, you've probably seen the progress that's been made. I'm very pleased with the design of it. I have had numerous inquiries the past couple of weeks about the fence. I had a call from Mayor Canning, and a few of the neighbors have called me or stopped me as I've been walking around town. As well as the Calistoga Tribune. So the new fence is big news. And everybody's been supportive of it. There was concern initially that we were going to be creating a barrier, not allowing any of the public to use Berry Field on weekends or after school is out. So I assured them at this point in time, it's following the same footprint around Berry Field as it did before. So the public will have access to Berry Field. The gates are still being fabricated, so the project is now expected to be completed on January 25th. And another project that may soon be in the works, Chris has just started investigating, is at the junior senior high school. So while gathering input from the facilities master plan, Nina Peterson brought to our attention that there's currently no sink in the junior high school band room, and that is a health concern, because mouthpieces on wind instruments need to be drained and cleaned on a regular basis, and it's typical for band rooms to have a sink. Since it's a relatively small project and will be even more necessary for safety due to COVID-19 and the environment when we get our kids back in school, we would like to go ahead and proceed with the installation. So Chris has been in the process of getting bids, and we hope to bring a contract to you, I'm hoping at the February board meeting. And then as yet another way to help ensure the health of our students when they return to in-person school, we purchased reusable bottles for every student to use in our water filling stations on the school campuses. And I want to give credit to Paula, who spent some time selecting these awesome Wildcat green bottles, which feel quite comfortable in the hand, and every single student will be given when they return to the sites. And then I also told you at the December meeting that Chief Salea was drafting an agreement for the school resource officer. With the business of the holidays, however, and his department being very busy right now, he was unable to complete the agreement in time for me to bring it forward to you tonight. So I'm going to submit it to you at the February meeting. I don't believe there's any issue in waiting, just simply because we don't have students back on campus yet. So hopefully I'll have that for you next time. And then I also want to let you know, as far as communication, that Paula is in the process of creating a bullying prevention page, which is a requirement now. So that will be on our district website. It'll include the legal definition of bullying, all of our board policies that are associated with bullying, the process to report a bullying incident, and then a large number of resources for both parents and students, as well as a link to our bullying tip line. Then I want to let you know too, under communication and parent engagement, that our first Napa Valley Adult Ed technology class for CGUSD parents is starting next Tuesday. So I am very excited and hope that we have lots of people participate. I also want to let you know that in December of 2019, for those of you who are on the board then, you approved Chris's participation in the Cash School Facilities Leadership Academy. So for the past 9 months, Chris has been attending virtual classes once per month on a Friday, Saturday. He has spent hours studying, submitted many assignments, and gave multiple presentations to his class cohort. And I'm pleased to announce that he completed the academy this weekend with accolades from his instructor. So congratulations, Chris, for all of your work. Yes. And then, lastly, you may or may not be aware that January is School Board Recognition Month. So it wasn't until I became a superintendent that I fully realized the responsibility of board trustees and the impact that board leadership can have on both students and staff. So as a very small token of our appreciation for your public service, we'd like you all to be the first to receive one of these awesome water bottles. And we also have for you one of our new cloth Wildcat masks. So you also can rock the Wildcat gear and logo. So thank you all for your service. It is greatly appreciated. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much. You know how I feel about logoed stuff. So exciting. Thanks, Paula. Awesome. Okay, anybody have any questions for Erin before we move on to the consent agenda? No.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Rudy. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, was the teachers like they talk to like if the students have any questions about what happened at the White House? Have you guys even addressed that, or how would they address the students if the students have any questions on that?
The principals want to answer that?
What I can say at the elementary school is that we went into our first day really embracing the restorative practices that we've been implementing over the last couple of years. And given the age of our students, what was more pressing for them was that we had many of our students who had direct experience with either family or extended family who had had COVID-19. And so right now that was the focus of most of the discussions given their age.
That makes sense.
Just at the high school level, Rudy, we kind of leave it to the discretion of the teachers. You know, we do of course have economics and government class that's for seniors, but also the U.S. history classes that cover the Constitution and Congress and all that. So, but we leave it to discretion. It's not something that we push out to them, but I'm hoping that they're taking this learning opportunity and to make sure that they have those conversations with their class.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Moving on to 9.1 consent agenda. So just to remind everybody, actions proposed for the consent agenda are deemed routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There's no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the board, audience, or staff requests specific items to be removed from the agenda for separate action. So at this point, I just ask everybody, nobody has any questions about any items on the consent agenda? Okay, then I am looking for a motion to go ahead and approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Great, and just remember to unmute. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, and it's roll call vote. So President Elkishan, aye. Clerk Lopez Jones?
Aye.
Trustee Maxfield?
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez, sorry.
Aye.
Trustee Rothberg Allen?
Aye.
And we have Representative Rubio is not here. Perfect. Okay, and then that moves us into 10.1 action item protocol. So protocol for action items includes staff presentation, questions from the board, public input, deliberation by the board, and voting by the board. And during public input, if there is any, we have a 3-minute time limit. So we will start with approval of Form J13A, and that's presented by Maureen.
Okay, J13A is a waiver of our, how do I explain it? We as a school district have to attend 180 days of school a year for our students. And if we don't attend those 180 days, then we are liable for a big giant fine with CDE if we somehow do not attend all 180 days and do not apply it for a waiver to let us not have to pay the fine to the state. And so that's what this J13A is. It's a waiver saying, hey, California Department of Ed, we have a calendar of 180 days, but due to power outages or things like a glass fire this last fall, we are applying for a waiver of 11 days of attendance to the state of California. And so given the nature of what we are applying for, the fires, and because it was made a federal emergency and because it was made declared a state emergency by Governor Newsom, it's probably highly likely we will be approved of this waiver. But we do have to nonetheless go through applying for it and getting acceptance from CDE. And we will be applying for 11 days, 10 days for the glass fire and 1 day for a power outage with PG&E, PSPS day.
Great. Anybody have any questions? These waivers are becoming normal every year. Okay, great. Then I am looking for a motion to go ahead and approve Form J13A as presented. Anybody get a motion? Jeff, are you motioning?
Yeah, I guess so. I couldn't hear if Stephanie was or not.
Oh, okay. How about I take Jeff as motioned, and Stephanie, do you want a second?
Sure.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then that moves us to 10.3, Calistoga Joint Unified School District Board Governance Handbook. Erin, did you want to say a little something about it?
Yeah, Paula updated, the board trustees' names in it, but otherwise I did not make any changes to the document. So if the board desires, we can make any revisions you would like.
Did everybody get a chance to read through it, especially Stephanie and Rudy? It's informative, right? I thought it was good to reread it. It kind of like re-energized everything in me. So if nobody has any changes, I think it looks great. Anybody? No? Okay, then I'm looking for a motion to go ahead and approve the board governance handbook as presented.
So move.
Second?
I second it.
Oh, let go, Rudy.
I'm gonna take Rudy.
Yeah, take Rudy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Don't forget to unmute it. Brings us to 10.4 athletic eligibility waivers. So Calistoga Junior Senior High School Athletics, with the support of the North Coast section of the California Interscholastic Federation, requests a temporary one-time waiver of the policy regarding the eligibility. So we discussed this in the discussion items last meeting, and now we are just looking for a motion to go ahead and approve that, unless anybody has questions. No? Okay, great. Then just looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Great. And a second?
Second?
Great.
Second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. All right. And then that brings us to 10.5. We are just looking at changing the date of a regularly scheduled board meeting, just a little clerical error. And we would like to change the date originally scheduled for Tuesday, June 1st to Monday, June 7th, which is really when it's typically held. So unless anybody has any questions, I'll just look for a motion to approve the change date of our June board meeting. Come on, you guys.
So moved.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Okay, and then 10.6 is board policies. So these were board policies that were presented at the last meeting, and now, oh no, these are, yeah, board policies that were presented at the last meeting. Sorry, I got confused there for a minute. And so we've already gone over these, so I'm just looking for a motion to go ahead and approve the board policies as presented. Don't be shy,
So
guys.
moved.
All right.
There's a football game on.
Second, I know, and if you jam through, we can. Who's seconding this for me?
I second it.
Okay, Rudy, thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay, so closing items 11.1. Our next meeting is Monday, February 8th. Then we have Monday, March 8th and Monday, April 12th. So if anybody sees dates that they think for some reason they cannot attend, just let us know ahead of time so we can make sure we have a quorum. And then 11.2 tentative future agenda items. We're going to look at the Williams quarterly report and Q2 investment report. And we do not have any reason to reconvene to closed session. So I'm just looking for the very best motion, which is to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah.
Indira? And second?
Second.
Second it.
All right, everybody's seconding that. I'm going to take Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Have a nice night. Thank you, principals, for joining us. Michelle, Kathy. Have a great, Paula. Thank you for everything. Have a good night.
Aye.
Well,